Vivir en los Estados Unidos, legalmente, sin un estatus legal adecuado, en cualquier momento puedes ser obligado a irte. Ahorita las leyes están a tu favor. Llámanos.
Llama a 800-877-403-0313. Eso es 877-403-0313. 877-403-0313.
Broadcasting from Now Media Network's headquarters in Houston, this is Purple Politics, hosted by political expert and commentator Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. Join us to discuss the most important issues affecting our nation with fresh, balanced, and objective discussion on the first bilingual media network in the United States. Purple Politics starts right now.
Welcome. We are now witnessing historic events from just 27, 28 years or days ago, a debacle of a debate to an assassination attempt, whether it was a bullet or shrapnel that hit his ear, who cares? Former President Trump was shot at. So we have a failed assassination attempt. We had an RNC, a Republican National Convention that was unifying the party, unifying outside of their base. Everything was reaching a high and of a crescendo until Trump started speaking on Thursday night. Well, in all due fairness, first 25 minutes, great. The other hour or so, not so much. His true colors came out. And then as we watched on our edge of our seats as the Democratic elite, Schumer, Obama, Pelosi, all of the elites, all of the powers be, the donors, all just putting their knives in the backs of President Biden's hopes of re-election. Et tu, bro tie. That's all we could keep thinking of. And I am Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. I'm going to take you through this whirlwind of historic events. Democratic leaders successfully ousted President Biden from his bid for re-election campaign, right or wrong, whether there was true concern or not. One of the things is for certain, this ouster, this shoving this man over the cliff to the point where he seeded his re-election campaign, opens up a can of worms. It opens up now that whenever there is a party candidate that the voters selected, if they're not polling well, if it looks like they're going to lose, you're out. Tap in the righty. Let's get in there. But Biden did speak on Wednesday evening, and it is the beginning of Biden's long farewell. President Joe Biden delivered a poignant address from the Oval Office, fourth in his presidency, signaling the beginning of his long farewell from office. With 6 months left in his term, he reflected on his journey and the necessity of passing the torch to a new generation, emphasizing American exceptionalism, family values, and his accomplishments. Biden's speech was a blend of personal gratitude and a call to action for unity and democracy. His message highlighted the importance of faith and American ideals and working together to preserve the nation's democratic principles. And though Biden said that he would never lie to the American people, he kind of did in his 11-minute speech, in that he didn't state the true reason behind his leaving. Was it truly because after such contemplation, even though as of that Sunday morning, before his illustrious tweet on X with the letter of resignation, his campaign were out there on the Sunday political talk show saying that Biden was going to be back stronger than ever this week? Or if the truth is that basically everybody lost faith in him and they basically looked at him and said, you have no way out. Of course, conspiracy theories are saying that he's probably going to get a sweet exit deal, like huge sums of money to a foundation where Jill and Hunter will continue to work and be supported in the lifestyle that they have begun to experience. But the bottom line is that Biden used this speech as an opportunity to reset his narrative and to rewrite his history, because the same media, the same Democratic elite, the same donors that were saying Biden is too confused, Biden cannot win, Biden must leave, are now crying that he is the Messiah of patriotism and he is a true hero. My heart goes out to President Biden. Whether or not I agreed on all of his policies, which I don't agree 100% with any of our past presidents or current politicians' policies, he deserved better. He was run through the gambit. He was run out of this office, and there is no turning back on this. Now, write what you will. The mainstream media is already changing their tune, no longer with the pitchforks and torches trying to force him out. Now they are glorifying him as this patriot. And once President Biden announced his decision on X, much to the surprise of many of his top campaign workers, the heir apparent has been coronated. Vice President Kamala Harris is now or set up to be the next presidential candidate, one woman who has not received one vote. Let's look back in 2019 when she was running for the presidential candidacy for 2020. She dropped out. Her highest peak was 15% in the polls, and that was after she attacked Joe Biden as a racist during one of their debates. But she plummeted to less than single digits and dropped out before a vote was even counted or even cast. So what leads up to, or what follows after this fateful Sunday letter of withdrawal, the calls to Kamala? Well, some would say that it was a big switch. So they were using up the days. I mean, if you look at it, it was almost seamless. Within 24 hours, Kamala had all of the delegates pretty much wrapped up. She had huge windfalls of donations. But the real question is how is Biden going to deal with being ousted? What is Biden going to be remembered for? Because one thing is for sure, no matter what good he has done, like their infrastructure bill, which is now going to be, you're going to see the benefits of that infrastructure bill, the rebuilding of bridges and roads and railways and ports really in 25 and 26. That is when the economists estimate that the United States will be reaping from the benefits of that bill. Or is his legacy 50 years as a public servant, 50 years as both a senator, vice president, and now president? Will it be marred based on these last few weeks? And this secrecy and the close management of information within Biden's inner circle, a pattern that has been consistent throughout his presidency, especially during the recent 3.5 weeks of political crises. The announcement, though expected, and it was expected, the manner in which they did it, that was what was shocking. The turning point for Biden seemed to come during a series of discussions and phone calls with key advisors and allies, including a crucial meeting with Senator Chuck Schumer. Despite expressing his intent to stay in the race as late as Friday night, the mounting pressure due to the polls showing significant drops in his ability, even in the most crucial states, The political realities led Biden to reconsider his candidacy. And by Saturday, signs of his change of heart were becoming apparent to the closest to him. Wednesday night, we witnessed a president who addressed his nation. And I do believe that this is a man that loves our country and he loves to be in service. Is he at fault for misrepresentations or lies or of records or things that have happened? Yes. Do I believe that he exemplifies, like Pelosi, like Mitch McConaughey, that there needs to be term limits? Absolutely. Because what is happening is we're having a Congress that is beyond aging out. We have a Congress that all it matters is to hold on to power. And they forget that this is a government by the people, for the people. See, and this is where that slippery slope, this precedence that the Democratic National Convention, the committee, the elites of the Democratic have opened the door to blind sides, to switching it up. And the reality is this: if the Democratic Party had just held a true primary or sat Biden down, as you know, last year, the beginning of this year, and said, you made a promise, and in 2020, you campaigned that you were only going to be a 4-year term, a one-term president, that you were going to be the bridge to bring us out of the chaos of the Trump administration and bridge us to a younger leadership. All he had to do was keep to that campaign promise, and there could have been a full primary. The Democratic voters and independents, all of us would have had a better choice. So now, for President Biden, who is now going to take the next 6 months with a very vaulted goal in finishing up his tenure, as Republicans, erroneously, in my personal opinion, are calling for him to step down as president, he's not incompetent until proven otherwise. You have to look at what comes next. What happens to us, we the people, when we vote for a candidate and the party elite don't like it? Or is it proven now that the Democrats could give 2 hoots about all of us and all they care about is the power, the progressiveness, the wokeness? Tune right back in after this commercial break, and we're going to go into the next new era for the DNC.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now, you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-367-1753. That's 800-367-1753.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
Well, the new chapter begins. Out with the old, some would say decrepit candidate, in with the Indian Afro-American candidate. Kamala Harris has basically wrapped up all of the delegates in her little purse, and come August the 1st, she will be declared the next candidate for the Democratic ticket for president 2024. Now, Harris will have a lot to answer because, as she had stated for the past 3.5 years, that she and Joe were tied at the hip, that every administrative decision, everything that they have done together. But also, more importantly, she's going to have to account for her covering up as soon as this past weekend of Biden's ability and capabilities. How the bet on an 81-year-old Joe Biden turned into the epic miscalculation. President Joe Biden's decision to withdraw from his re-election campaign was influenced by growing concerns about his age, his health, but bottom line is because his not able to beat Donald Trump. The polls had Donald going further and further out by 5 to 7 percentage points in key states. And that is what compounded the political pressures within his own party. And despite maintaining a public stance of confidence and determination, Biden's advancing age, recent health issues, including his recovery from COVID-19, which he has recovered easily, and the polls were what is doomsday. As we discussed earlier, his decision to withdraw was also influenced based on the Democratic elite. It very much was the Ides of March, for those of you who love Shakespeare. And Biden's announcement came after a period of intense internal deliberations and strategic discussions. And let's not forget that just 6.5 months ago, earlier this year, media and some of the Democratic elite and elected congressional members were questioning whether Kamala was even a good vice president. There was ramblings of maybe switching of vice presidents because she is seen so weak, because Kamala Harris's approval ratings are worse than Joe's. And Joe's has the worst approval ratings among U.S. presidents. So and also you have to question, why is it that from June 27th, just shy of a month ago, when they started calling for him to resign, or not to resign, to drop out of the election, cede your election, why wasn't Kamala already picked there? And you know why? It's because they seriously were doubtful of that. They didn't know whether she would be able to go toe-to-toe with Trump and beat Trump. And let's face it, AOC was out there on social media, on TikTok and X and such, basically saying that if they didn't go with Kamala Harris, you would be pissing off, basically, the woke progressive left, that extreme French. Because as Kamala has shown in 2019, and as she is today, she is the most liberal senator when she was a senator. She is basically socialist in that what she was pushing when she was running for the Democratic ticket in 2020. And now we have a dramatically shifting landscape. With Joe's ouster or sacrifice, whichever way you want to put it, the 2024 presidential race paves the way for Kamala Harris to become the first Asian Black presidential candidate, woman presidential candidate, excuse me. This sudden change has refocused the party's efforts on attacking Donald Trump as Democrats and the media shift their attention away from the concerns about Biden, his age, his performance, potential replacements, and now it has gone a resurgence. The media is extolling everything. All news is about Kamala. Everything is about Kamala and how great she is. I am noticing, and I'm sorry, I am not someone who is going to go with identity politics. Just because she's a woman, just because she's a Black woman, I weigh my options does not mean I am racist. But one thing is for sure, she has energized her base. The Democratic Party, and in particular, the Black women Democrat voters have been energized, and there is an exuberance. And yes, there has been 120 million reported in the last 36 hours that Kamala received in new donations. Now, some of those donations probably were donors holding back, saying that they weren't going to give anymore. But like the CEO of Netflix has donated to Kamala Harris. So there is no doubt there is a resurgence and energy. What we were witnessing last week with the Republican Party, we are now seeing, at least in this bubble of time, with the Democratic Party. Now, with Harris's past performance as vice president or previous campaign shortcomings, this could undermine her effectiveness on the campaign trail. And critics continue to scrutinize her past policy positions and current polling numbers, which still show her trailing Trump in many key battleground states. And she's still about 2 percentage points in the national polls. Harris's tenure has been marked by a series of political missteps, controversies, including criticisms to her role as what the media coined her as in 2021, border czar, and her progressive positions from her Senate career. Her past commitments to policies like Medicare for all and the Green New Deal could alienate moderate voters, and her prior campaign failures add to the uncertainty surrounding her potential candidacy. And then you have Donald Trump. I mean, this is getting ugly. He just had a rally yesterday in Michigan, and folks, I don't want to shock you, but all of that talk about unity, about toning down the rhetoric, about going after the policies and the administration's record, which, by the way, Kamala can't take all of the credit for the good stuff and not the have all of the negatives heaped on her as well. But unfortunately, as it's being seen, is that softer, more unifying Trump, he's back to his old antics. And honestly, this is his election to lose. I know. All the Maganites, all the Trumponians, as Hulk Hogan was stating, at the RNC, are going to probably come after me. But it is the truth. Donald Trump, if he doesn't check his language, if he doesn't get off of this character assassinations, because that's all he does. He keeps thinking he's still on Celebrity Apprentice. He doesn't have to do it. But one of the biggest things that Donald Trump does is that he goes after his opponents, and he goes after them in a demeaning manner. And that is going to bite him in the ass if he does that and he's already doing it with Harris, because his biggest demographic that he needs are independents, but educated women, women who live in suburbs, the suburb moms, or the educated suburbians, the white woman vote. Right here. He went after Nikki Haley, started calling her bird brain. The people he surrounded himself in his campaign and his advisors were calling her, I mean, absolutely deplorable names, making fun of her, putting a birdcage. You do that against Kamala, you're going to turn off a lot of people, and you're already on an uphill battle because of what J.D. Vance has stated about women without children who are cat moms, the cat ladies, or the fact that he was out saying that people who have children should have their vote should count more because they have a vested interest in the future of this country versus those of us who do not. And that is turning off both independents, Republicans, and especially Democrat women. When you have a demographic that you are trying to appeal to, we'll see how it is. Both are highly unlikable candidates. It's the truth. Kamala, she talks to you in a very condescending, smug manner. She whines and she talks down to her audience as if they're a bunch of kindergartners. And I do not want to offend any kindergartners. But she is not a popular candidate. She has a lot to recover from. She also has to recover from the fact of the matter is that she is an extremely left-leaning candidate. She is basically socialist. She is extremely progressive. So now the question is, who is going to be her running mate? Is she going to choose a moderate person? Is she going to choose, maybe roll the dice and go double down, and we're going to have a double woman team, tag team on women? That's highly doubtful, just because the reality is she needs a moderate. She needs someone to counterbalance her previous stances and her current stances. But one thing is for sure, Kamala and Trump came out with their fists up and they are landing punches on each other. And the reality is that we're going to see come November whether Nikki Haley is right. Because let's all remember, Nikki Haley, when she was running for the Republican primary, stated that whatever party decides to do an audible and replace their candidate at that time will be the one that wins. Will this be true? Because we just now had a major sideline of two old men, retake, nobody wanted again. Now we have a new player in. Will this have an effective change? We're going to take a quick break, tune back in so we can discuss Trump and what his election may or may not look like.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
How would you like to go on a 5-star vacation for just $99? We're talking about the quality of a Westgate resort for $99. Not for one night, but for 3 fantastic nights at one of their luxurious destinations across the United States. And you'll even get a free $100 Visa gift card just for making a reservation. We've got some of the choicest destinations that you'll love in the United States that you can choose from for just $99 for a 3-night stay. Take your family, take a special loved one, but get away. Go on vacation with Westgate Resorts. Call now to make a reservation for just $99, and you get a free $100 Visa gift card. Call Westgate right now and book your vacation. Here's the number.
Call 877-930-3491. That's 877-930-3491. Again, 877-930-3491.
Pollsters are busy wondering what will be the effect of swapping in Harris for Biden against Trump. And currently, the general election polls show a 2.1 percentage in Trump's favor. In fact, Trump is 5 points ahead of Harris in Arizona, 2 points in Georgia, 1 point in Michigan, and 2 points in Pennsylvania. Those are the key states. So let's discuss Trump's campaign and what was supposed to be a reset after that assassination attempt seems to be going off the rails. And I don't know. Can someone please tell Trump that these long-winded rally speeches are too Fidel-esque? I mean, Fidel Castro used to go on and on for 2-3 hours. We don't need him to show that he has stamina to talk for 2 hours. Also, he needs to remember those MAGA loyalists, the Trump loyalists, they're going to vote for him. Regardless, they're going to vote for him. Trump and his allies need to adapt to the fact that they still need the independent voters. They still need to adhere to those Nikki supporters, those, disenfranchised, what they like to call rhino, which at least they dropped that for now, rhino Republicans. And they also want to appeal to those Democrats that don't feel like they have a place in their own party. And you know what? Donald now is fighting for attention. For the first time since early 2023, when Donald Trump was indicted, he has dominated news coverage and shaped political discourse. However, with President Biden's exit, Trump has momentarily lost his media grip and finds himself in unfamiliar territory. Nobody's talking about him. But yet we are. Everybody is. Just, it's not flooding the news channels. And this shift has shifted the media spotlight onto Kamala, who has rapidly gained traction and energized the Democratic base, complicating Trump's campaign strategy. In the wake of Biden's departure, Harris has quickly captured the public's attention with a robust campaign effort. She has amassed over $120 million in donations, drawn larger crowds than Biden. Now, she draws 3,000 crowds where Biden was only a couple of hundred. She is drawing that. Now, is it where the MAGA rallies are? No, before they were put inside, were 45,000 plus people. But she is energizing it. And the enthusiasm among Black voters and women is palpable. Unlike Biden, Harris is receiving overwhelming positive media coverage, which contrasts sharply with Trump's recent experience of being overshadowed. Now, let's remind everybody, it was just a week and a half ago that there was an assassination attempt on Trump. All media came out, even CNN, MSNBC, all coming out to show not necessarily support for Trump, but saying this was wrong. And that they all admitted that him standing up with that fist in the air with the flag behind him in the blue sky was jaw-dropping awesome, as Zelensky would say. That was just badass. But now Trump's campaign, which was somewhat prepared for a potential Biden exit, had developed anti-Harris materials and conducted private polls. However, the speed and efficiency of Harris's rise took them by surprise. Although, how surprising? Because is it really 24 hours? I mean, they want to say, oh, I didn't know anything until Sunday morning when Joe called me to his house. I don't buy that. I'm calling BS on that. Because the operative, the Democratic elite were already working in the background on what to do, how to get there. So when you start seeing that delegates are lockstep in order, that's because of weeks, if not at least, well, yeah, weeks. This was already in the works, whether it was Kamala or someone else. Now, Trump expected a period of disarray, maybe having, waiting for the delegates and having like a flashback to the 1968 Democratic primary when Johnson stepped down. However, that's not what happened. Again, because the Democratic Party, give them one thing, that Democratic Party, they are about, they believe in holding on to power. They believe in that unison. They will fall into place. You may have some dissenters, but they will step into place, and that's what they're doing. So there is concern within Republican circles about the potential backlash from overly aggressive or racially charged attacks on Harris, which Trump is known to do. He's already calling her crazy cackle laugh, the lunatic. I mean, this is not going to work. Because I, for one, was totally appalled when he was going after Nikki Haley, calling her bird brain, calling her other derogatory terms. This is not going to help you. Maybe someone can get through to them. Also, you have some Republicans, including past House speakers, advising against such tactics, but Trump himself has continued to make these controversial remarks. Again, that 24-hour period where he was coming out nice, or that 48-hour period, that's gone. He's back to the same old Trump, and that is part of the problem. Again, Trump loyalists, they love it, but you don't need to lock in your base. You got them. Hello, Donald, you're trying to win people over like myself. You're actually trying to win people over like family members of mine that are very conservative, that are so angry at the way he is acting now, because he had it. He had all the wind behind him. He had all of that oomph. Again, this is his election to lose because of his mouth. Now, what are some of my other observations of the Trump campaign? Well, some people are now questioning J.D. Vance as his vice presidential running mate. Now, Trump picked him because he likes J.D. He knows he'll work with him well. Also, that J.D. is basically a yes man, and that is it. Yes, they have some conflicting viewpoints, but JD is as offensive as Trump is. JD has made statements that he is now going to have to figure out how he's going to backtrack it. Now, JD, I get it. You're a conservative Catholic. You're a proud father, and you feel like it is the woman's obligation or a role to pop out babies. For those of us that have tried to do infertility treatments, for those of us that have chosen a path or didn't have that life, motherhood chosen, but couldn't, you still need our vote. Still need it. Now, Melania has been basically a ghost in this campaign. And yes, Melania is known for wanting her privacy and very much protective of that policy, that privacy. But let's harken back to the 2016, where Ivanka Trump came out as a star, and everybody said that she was the shining light for Trump because she showed decorum, eloquence, but also seem to be able to be a bridge. Now, personally, I feel that Melania should be out there. Yes, she's doing things with the LGBTQ conservative groups and fundraisers, but why not do rallies or fundraisers with naturalized citizens that come from former Soviet Union or communist nations? She is an immigrant. She is a refugee. She knows what it was like to live in communist rule. Why not come forward and start having rallies with these people, because they had that commonality? Just like when the Biden administration and the INS asked her to speak to a group, to speak to the naturalization of a large group in DC, she has that appeal. She doesn't have to be fire and brimstone. We'll leave that for JD and Trump. She could be appealing to women, but more importantly, maybe go out there. There's a lot of naturalized citizens voting bloc that know, or their family members have come from communist nation, or know what it's like when your whole life is stripped away, where all of your rights are stripped away. But she could be bringing this. Melania needs to be coming back up. Yes, there's memes out there saying that she doesn't have to hold, Trump's hand like Jill has to with Biden's. No, but she could be a nice little bit of a temperament. Do smaller little venues, do smaller engagements, but she needs to start coming back out there. Another suggestion that a lot of political analysts are saying is it is time for Trump to start announcing who he would choose as his cabinet members. And let's just pray that it's not just a bunch of yes men. You know what? I want to see Nikki Haley on that cabinet. And I know the MAGA people are like, oh, she was disloyal. She doesn't deserve to be on that. She was a rhino. You know what? She was good enough to be the ambassador to the United Nations and his administration. She's good enough to be on the cabinet, because the bottom line is she has an appeal with independence. She was the one calling for consensus building, which is something that Congress and the administration are supposed to be doing. For you millennials, for you Gen Zs, look back to the President Clinton administration and see what he did. In the first year, he was trying to stand his ground, but then he learned that by building collaborations and consensus, he was able to move vital bills. He is going to go down as history as one of our great presidents, but he was a moderate for a reason. The reason why he moved more center was because he realized he could do more for the country. Hello, who all of you politicians are supposed to be working for. So announce that cabinet, get Melania out there, start diffusing a little bit of the rhetoric and start showing moderation. Show that you are truly wanting to invite those that are not MAGA. As Amber Rose stated at the RNC, that she found that it does not matter if you are black, white, yellow, red, blue, gay, straight, married, divorced, what have you. Everyone is welcome in the Republican Party. Show that you are the beacon of the beacon of light to those that feel disenfranchised. We're going to cut to a quick commercial break, and I will be right back.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now, you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-367-1753. That's 800-367-1753.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Well, here's a great idea. Donate your car now to help local veterans in your area. Yes, just make one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program. Within a few days, we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate any car in any condition. We'll use our vast network to sell it. The proceeds raised go to help local veterans and their families. And you get a tax deduction. And all you need to do is make this free call. Clean your yard up, get rid of an old car, and help the vets. We make it easy. Make this free call now. Book your fast and easy pickup. Call the Veteran Car Donation Program now.
Israeli Bibi Netanyahu speaks to Congress, and the outrage of the protesters resulting in vandalism and ruin of historic national treasures and indicating a gross support of Hamas. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently addressed a joint session of Congress, using the opportunity to defend his handling of the ongoing war in Gaza and appeal for support from both President Biden and former President Trump. His speech, marked by pointed criticisms of Democrats and praise for Trump, aimed to bolster U.S. backing for Israel amid this conflict. In his address, Netanyahu praised President Biden for supporting Israel, but also pressured the administration to expedite weapons shipments and assist in countering Iran's influence. And more importantly, Iran providing weaponry to Hezbollah to, well, continue to do so for Hamas, and now Yemen. He described the U.S.-Israel alliance as a deeply intertwined relationship with shared enemies and victories. His comments were met with a standing ovation from many lawmakers, especially Republicans, who responded enthusiastically. Netanyahu's speech also faced criticism. Numerous Democrats boycotted this. This is a prime minister of an ally nation, and they boycotted his speech. And why was that? In solidarity with the pro-Palestinian groups. Well, Nancy Pelosi will tell you she was meeting with the hostage families, but it's basically that, which is another actually issue that's going to be coming up more and more with Kamala's presidential campaign, because the Democrats have now pointedly put down like that their full support is behind these pro-Palestinian groups. That is their concern now. And what the bigger question, when will the Jewish voters that vote traditionally Democrat wake up and say, you know what, enough is enough? Vice President Kamala Harris and pretty soon Democratic presidential candidate and several Democratic lawmakers, to include, like I stated, Nancy Pelosi, Elizabeth Warren, and many others, boycotted the event, which is in stark difference to when Zelensky came to speak before Congress. And, you know, Kamala was there on her pulpit holding up the Yugoslavian flag. And while other critics, including Senator Chuck Schumer and Representative Rashida Tlaib, voiced their disapproval, Tlaib did sit there holding up a sign labeling Netanyahu a war criminal, reflecting the tension over Israel's military actions and the broader debate from U.S. support. Now, it's interesting that they're deeming this the broader debate. The reality is that you have a squad, and in the squad there are two very conflict-oriented individuals. Do I need to say their names? I don't think so. But Tlaib is one of them. Yes, she is Palestinian. I understand that. And the other is from Somalia. I understand that. However, their allegiance to that Palestinian cause, their allegiance to the destruction of Israel, their allegiance for the downfall of an ally, and actually encouraging when we talk about it, and if you go back and look at the tapes of what was occurring in DC with the destruction and Hamas is coming and stuff, that is irresponsible. The Prime Minister's visit to the U.S. comes amid complex domestic and international challenges. Netanyahu's comments on Gaza highlighted ongoing efforts to secure the release of the hostages, to include U.S. hostages, which none of our current leadership on the Democratic side, our president, our vice president, talk about the fact that we still have U.S. citizens that are being held, if they are still alive even. We don't even know if they're alive. And again, it goes back to when the parents of a U.S. hostage, their son Or, is still being held, and they were being presented at RNC, and even many of the CNN political analysts questioned whether they would even be allowed to speak at the DNC based on the Democratic National Party's shift. All because they are worried about a very small group in Michigan. He rejected claims that Israel deliberately targets civilians and demanded increased U.S. military aid to finish the conflict more swiftly. And everyone has to recall, Hamas, they hide within the families. They put their tunnels underneath hospitals. They put their tunnels underneath schools. They purposely put their fighters within the families and use their own people as human shields. And we reported months ago about how the Palestinian people are now starting to voice their objection to Hamas. Netanyahu's trip is also a strategic maneuver amid shifting U.S. political dynamics, with Biden withdrawing from the 2024 race and Kamala Harris poised as the new Democratic candidate. This is interesting. And people are going to keep saying, well, Kamala, she's not going to be anti-Semitic because her husband is Jewish. That is true. Her husband is Jewish. She was raised, I believe, Christian. Her relatives are Hindu from India. But one thing is for certain, when you have your own stepdaughter who is out there now bashing the United States for their involvement in Gaza and bashing Israel, that's not a good look. Because the bottom line is Hamas is not a friend of ours. In fact, many of these protesters that were disrupting, that they were able to break into the hotel where Bibi was staying, throwing maggots and locusts in the hotel, doing fire alarms. It is disgraceful. And these protesters rebuking the Prime Minister's speaking at the Capitol. On Wednesday, thousands of protesters, and witness has said that buses upon buses upon buses, like 20 plus buses of protesters gathered outside the U.S. Capitol during Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's address to Congress, reflecting the deep opposition to Israel's war in Gaza. Demonstrators carried signs called for a ceasefire. Great. Peaceful protesters, ceasefire, that's fine. And depicted Netanyahu with wanted posters. Fine. All First Amendment. The area around the Capitol was heavily secured with barricades with a significant police presence, including officers in helmets, of course, because one, you never know if it's going to break out to a riot. And secondly, which it pretty much did. And secondly, also to protect those that were counter-protesting, which would be the Jewish people that were there, the kids that were there, or Christians in solidarity with Israel. The protests were marked by confrontations with the police. U.S. Capitol Police used pepper spray on demonstrators who did not comply with the orders to move, and 6 individuals were arrested for disrupting the address from the House gallery. In other words, they stormed the Capitol. Does that sound familiar? Please drop the January 6th BS when you have constant demonstrations that are left, that are left leaning, that are supported by the Democrats, that they think this is a winning point, keep storming the Capitol. Enough. But what happened outside in DC, it was heartbreaking. And it makes me wonder, why is it that the youth of our country seem to hate our country so much? As the protests progressed, many of the demonstrators moved to Union Station, where they faced additional security measures and replaced American flags. They took down the American flags and hung and flew the Palestinian flag. Protesters defaced symbols like the Liberty Bell and Columbus Memorial Fountain with graffiti expressing support for Palestine and criticism of Israel. But even more importantly, they were putting "Hamas is coming, death to Israel, death to America." Wait a minute. You mean the country that's allowing you the First Amendment right to say all this, but you're going to say death to America? This is an issue. The protesters were basically, the outrage for the Gaza conflict is resulting in the 39,000 Palestinian deaths that are reported by the Gaza health authorities. The protest also highlighted diverse opinions within the U.S. on the Gaza conflict. Some participants, like Maya Hachman, voiced frustration with both Israeli policies and President Biden's handling of the situation. Hachman criticized Biden's stance while expressing support for Vice President Kamala Harris's calls for a ceasefire. Now, let's go back, because everybody seems to be putting the blame on Bibi, saying that he is refusing to enter into a ceasefire deal because of his own political issues back home in Israel. But yet Hamas has basically, anytime there was, okay, yes, we have agreement on the US, Qatar, Israel. Hamas says, no, wait a minute, we have something else. And now they're saying, oh yeah, well, once Israel gets out of Gaza, once Israel is completely out of Gaza, then we'll give up the hostages. And they don't even know how many hostages are alive. So no, that isn't a good deal. You know what? As President Trump has stated, it is time for our U.S. citizens to be home. Release the hostages. But also, it's a deal breaker that Hamas stay in power in Palestine. Or in Gaza, excuse me. Oh, and other notable Democrats that boycotted the Congress because, you know, they can't seem to have respect for an ally's prime minister, regardless of your difference of opinion. You should be able to sit in the same room. AOC, Ilhan Omar, no surprise there. She's, you know, basically thinks Somalia's policy should be above US's. These are who we're dealing with. And in response to the protest, Vice President Kamala did condemn it by putting a statement on Twitter of the despicable acts and hate-fueled rhetoric. We have a problem. This is not like the Vietnam War protests, at least from what I saw in newsreels and looking back in history. These kids are tearing down American flags and burning them. These kids are defacing monuments. These protesters are attacking Jewish people. This is wrong. I'm all for peaceful. If you want to say down with Israel, you want to say down with the ceasefire and all that, all for it, because we want peace. Absolutely. Everybody wants peace. We want peace in between Putin and Zelensky too. Let's not forget that. But defacing historic monuments, saying death to America, tearing down, taking down and tearing up American flags, and then chasing after and attacking the individual who basically grabbed an American flag from it being burning, that is not the way to go about this. I am Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. Make sure you are buckled in tight and the safety bars are in, because we are going to be in for a wild roller coaster ride. Thank you so much for tuning in to Purple Politics. I hope to see you next week. Good night.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now.